For a full day of speaker training yesterday, sounding like Minnie Mouse. Yes, good investment. Yeah.
So we will make this painless, but maybe
then it wouldn't be fun.
Well, then it wouldn't be fun.
Yeah.
But we'll try forward.
Okay.
But maybe just do a short 1 minute, 30-second, 15 seconds, whatever.
You gave them like 2 minutes. I'm going for 2 minutes.
You're going for 2 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay.
But also, you got to share one interesting tidbit about yourself that people might not know about. I know.
All right, so I'm going to talk about my business first because that is interesting. I started the Bridge Group in 1998. We are laser focused on the B2B tech space primarily, and what we do is help companies truly unleash the power of inside sales, whether that's sales development or quota carrying reps. We're nationwide. About 18 consultants, Boston and San Francisco, which obviously makes sense. And we are absolutely passionate about what we do. And that's why we publish such great content that we share with the community. And that's why we wrote the book.
And what about your life as an underground punk? You got to share one.
Okay. I have a permit to carry concealed in the state of Massachusetts.
Where is it?
I came up on a train, they wouldn't get like to cross the state lines, they kept teaching me about it.
I'm sure your license to kill as well.
I'm a great shot. If you were friends with me on Facebook, you'd know I'm a great shot.
Alright, we're going to be talking about this new hotness. This new hotness called sales development.
It's the hottest thing in sales today.
It's the hottest thing in sales. So why is sales development hot? Why now? What exactly do we talk about when we talk about sales development? There's been a lot of different monikers.
So I'm not, I feel like I'm an overnight success 30 years in the making, right? I've been doing sales development since the late 80s. Kurt, you know it, because we used to work together. So it used to be telemarketing, and then it fell into the inside sales umbrella, and finally it's earned its place with a real sales moniker attached to it. And I think it's so hot right now, and there was a Forbes article out there, if you need to use it for any internal selling, called The Hottest Thing in Sales Today, this thing called sales development. But I think it's come into its own for a couple reasons. One, role specialization. People understand how critical it is for productivity. Two, our buyers, we are boring the ever-loving crap out of them. So they stopped responding in the ways they used to. So we need someone whose sole job is to be interesting and relevant to our buyers. And three, and I swear to God this happens, a bunch of technology vendors went, hey, I'm going to sell to them and I'm going to make a lot of money. And there's like 40 vendors focused on nothing but sales development right now. And when VCs and vendors focus on something, it gets paid attention to.
So we talked about there's kind of foundation around sales development. Everyone has like a different perspective on it. But what I liked about what you laid out is that you broke it into, okay, these are the elements. These are the things you should probably think about before you get into process or methodologies, all the tools in particular, right? So maybe just lay out like, what are the 6 pieces or the 6 elements that we should really think about. And if you get stumped, I'll pitch in.
Did someone give you a book? Well, obviously it all starts with strategy. That's the most important piece. And what kills me about strategy is that that's the piece no one pays attention to. They'll look at every tool under the planet, A/B test emails out the hoo-ha, and then their strategy is whatever crappy strategy they brought with them from their last company, right? They don't think about, wait, this is a different buyer, different market, different price point, different solution. They're like, well, in my last company, we set introductory meetings, and it worked, so I'm going to do it here too. Or, well, in our last company, we set qualified opportunities, and we're going to do it here too. It doesn't make sense. It's the most important thing you can do, and it's people don't pay attention to it. It makes me insane. So that's why the first element in the book is understand where you are based on a ton of variables, right? And then work through those variables, make those decisions, and then it leads you to an implementation that makes sense for you.
Sure, and you kicked it all off by saying you should ask some questions. So you have the 5 whys, and because my mind is going as well. We talked about why listen, why care, why change, why you, and why now. So what does that really mean in terms of setting a strategy? How does it actually apply to folks thinking about, okay, well, if I'm going to set up an SDR or a sales development team, how do those questions help me figure things out?
Well, the reason we laid it out is because we wanted to sort of lay out the buyer's journey. So if you look at the questions they ask themselves, it's why should I listen to you? Why should I care about what you're saying? Why should I change? Okay, now I want to change. Why should I pick you and why should I do it now? And sales development is really focused on the first 2 whys, why listen and why care. And you have to figure out how far down the path you want your SDRs taking that conversation. Do you want them just getting to engagement, which is just why listen? Or do you want them actually having those first conversations about why that buyer should care about the conversation you're going to have with them? And it's sort of the swing between why listen and why care is what helps you understand what should my strategy be, introductory meetings or qualified opportunities. And by the way, whatever your board tells you to do the opposite.
Yeah. Just without curiosity, right? Who here is employed by a company that's VC backed?
It's awesome.
It is awesome. It's not everyone now, so it's so true. Like, there's a lot of VCs out there that will just tell you all this stuff. In fact, we just had a recent conversation about this, and the VC had mentioned it in a conversation as well. This whole thing about mix. So maybe just like a little bit of sidetrack, maybe a little bit tactical, but what's this whole deal about mix? Why is it?
It's dead.
It's dead.
It's dead. All right. I just mentioned, right? Will you show me your W-2 right now? Right here. No, you don't know me. We have no relationship, yet I'm going to ask you those kinds of questions. Buyers don't want to hear that crap. You can't just walk up to a buyer and they know they're getting banned. Like I get it all the time. I call, and I'm nice to SDRs most of the time. And I'll be like, oh my God, he's banting me. Like, what is that? Like, it doesn't even make any sense at all anymore. That's not what they want from us. That's what shuts them down on us. Banty's dead. Dead is a dream.
Yeah, and it's amazing that that still seems to be like a methodology that's employed in a lot of places.
Yeah,
To
old
a
school.
certain extent, right?
Yeah, old school.
So, and it was kind of funny because I think, Keenan, no, Chad shared that clip with Keenan, and it was actually part of a whole discussion before that led into this whole conversation around bands, what are more maybe relevant questions and actually maybe a more relevant approach. And I like how you have the book, this idea that, no, you don't start with budget. You have PACT as kind of a process of, you may...
I keep telling people, I wrote it, I didn't memorize it. Apparently when you're an author, you're supposed to memorize 240 pages. No. Okay. Yeah, so we just gave a different framework. I mean, Ken Crow from InsideSales.com, you can Google it. He does something called ANIM, which is authority, need, urgency, and then he eventually gets to money. We did PACT, which is pain, authority, consequence, and this is the most important one, T for target profile, right? It kills me when people call me trying to sell me an ERP system. I'm like, how did I get on your list? Like, what a waste of time. And I always say to the person, can you put your manager on the phone for me? Because I want to talk to them about my services, because why are they having you waste your time? So I think T, target profile, is a critical success factor for sales development.
It's funny because I don't know how many really bad sales emails you get. Well, but
120 a day.
it's probably
They're in the
Not
book,
quite
some
that
of them
level.
too.
But yeah, it amazes me that all this stuff gets you actually know what your target is. I'm just this person who runs enterprise sales meetings. It's a multinational organization. Not yet. It's planned. But I want to move to.
Wait a minute, I don't want to move off that yet.
But you don't.
No, let me tell you why.
Okay.
So, if you're in sales, you have a responsibility to help other salespeople be better. It's your responsibility to mentor each other. So when you get a call from an SDR, take a minute and talk to them and give them some feedback. But the first thing I want you to say to them is 2 questions. What do you know about me, and what do you know about my business? And typically this is what I hear. Clickety, clackety, clickety, you're a CEO. I'm like, right, what kind of company? They have no idea. Once again, it's a prospect for me, but that's not why I do it. What I say to them is, in about 30 seconds, you could have looked up something about me and used it in the conversation of being called the 3 C's in the book, how to start a conversation. And you need to do that, and you need to be allowed the time to do that. So if you have an SDR team and you're just basing it on them banging the phones and not giving them the time to just take that moment to be relevant to someone, I'm going to ask you to change.
Yeah, so why don't you do it as well? Because I just feel compelled every time I get that really bad call. Like, for example, I remember like a week ago, I downloaded some ebook from a sales acceleration company. You probably already know who it is. And the person on the phone and said, "Hello, this is Mark." That's me. I'm calling because you downloaded our ebook, and I want to see if you have any questions.
I'm calling because someone told me if I respond within 5 minutes, I'll win the deal. So I'm calling. I have nothing to say to you. I don't know who you are or what you care about, but I'm here in 5 minutes. Can I win the deal?
Right. But this was a week, so they didn't actually, do the whole thing about like urgency, like 5 minutes or so. It was a week, and my first question was, what ebook did I download? Because actually, I couldn't even remember at the time because I was caught off guard. They had no idea. They didn't even have that. So.
Excuse me, Mark. Can you just speak up a little bit for us?
Sure. My mic is dead. But
Share the mic. Share the mic.
Are you kidding? Do you want me to live to see another day?
I will speak louder. But thank you. I want to move on. I want to move on to hiring.
Yeah.
That was kind of the next stage of the whole 6 elements. And hiring is such a big component of making your team great. If you don't have the right people, no process is going to save you. But you just share some of your thoughts around how to hire, how to even think about the process.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. You have to have a process. Most companies have a chaotic hiring process. It's not well thought out. We'll agonize about our sales process. And then when we come to our hiring process, we bring in people, we have a meet with a bunch of people, we sit around, we subjectively make decisions. Oh, I liked her shoes, or no, I didn't like him, or, yeah, well, and oh, we take too long. So, how many people in here are hiring SDRs right now, are hiring at all? Like everybody. Guess what you're all doing? Swap and spin. Because the SDRs are all moving from one company to the next. Boston is turning into like Silicon Valley, where people are jumping after 15 months to go from one job to the next.
We've implemented sound effects for Gina.
So what you have to do is rise above the noise to hire great candidates. Yeah, what are you doing? So one way you can rise above the noise, we'll just keep going. We'll pretend like none of this happened.
There you go.
Oh, all right.
It's worth
Yeah.
all of it.
Are you hiring millennials? No millennials? Okay. Yeah, it's it's not a bad thing to do, but when people are trying to recruit millennials, you know, you have to be innovative. Like there are a million companies in a 20-mile radius here, and everybody's trying to hire the same talent pool. If you're hiring millennials, use Instagram. Like, talk about fishing, where your candidates swim. Those people are on Instagram all the time. You should have an Instagram hiring page. How about Glassdoor? Who looks at their Glassdoor reviews?
Okay.
You should
Good coverage.
be studying your Glassdoor reviews. It's like Yelp for hiring. People go there. They look at you. It is a candidate's market, and we have to know that and be smart about it. And I'm talking to people about getting that hiring process down to like 10 days to offer if you're hiring an SDR.
But
And there's Mark Rodman. Wouldn't you agree that the shorter the hiring process, the more likely you're going to get the candidate you want?
I agree.
There you go.
Well, you had a story about in the book where someone had a bunch of offers, like 3 different offers, and which one did they take first? The one that got back to them in 10 days,
Yep.
and they accepted the offer in 11.
Yep. You have to make the people feel special. I mean, it is competitive out there. Like the offer letter should come from your VP of sales or your CMO, not your, HR person, which, not to denigrate HR, but just to make them feel special, like you're gonna join this great company and I'm paying attention to you already and I haven't even hired you yet, so.
Well, I think the bane, or the real challenge I have is that it starts even at the very beginning, like how you think about the hiring profile and these job descriptions.
Yeah.
I mean, they're terrible.
They are terrible. They're sleep prescriptions. They're like, come to work, make 100 calls a day, suffer massive rejection. It's going to be cold outbound. It's going to be the worst job you've ever had, but we have a candidate, right? So, how we actually at AAISP event taught people how to change their job descriptions, and this is on our blog, which is blog.bridgegroupinc.com, and it takes you through how to write your job description. In Rapid7, anyone here from Rapid7? No? Had 4 qualified candidates, went to 28 after changing the job description. Because they were selling the sizzle. That's what you get. You're selling yourself to the candidate.
Yeah, I think what really impressed me with the process that it's what you specified in the book, but it's really just having a rigor about doing the things in a very kind of almost militaristic way, just to get it done. You go through and you have the conversation, you set it up, and you make sure that people are asking the right questions and looking for the right things. Because oftentimes, I don't know, like how many interviews that we've all been on where it seems like maybe you either people are asking the same questions over and over again, and be dull, and you don't get any information, or no one actually collaborates and actually has a scorecard and they can actually keep track of anything.
Right. Yeah, you need to have a process, just like a sales process. No two ways about it.
So, once you actually hire folks, you got to actually make them stay. And I see that's where a lot of the challenges happen, because SDRs, I mean, what's the average SDR tenure?
14 months.
14 months, right? So,
And it takes 3 to 4 to ramp. So you're getting like 10 months of productivity.
so in that amount of time, you gotta figure out, what are you doing? How do you make these folks successful in a short amount of time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to invest in onboarding, that's for sure. One of the things that we talk about in the book is, especially from SDRs, first or second job out of college, we think, they have a need for speed, right? And we think that they want to move up. So we're always like, SDRs gotta go to AEs. And that moves them up very quickly. We actually have a stat that 64% of all SDRs that move into an AE role too quickly fail. So we're setting them up to fail. So how do you address that issue? And we address it in the book by talking about micro promotions. So micro promotions are an SDR that moves up through a series of roles within the SDR group, each with increasing responsibility, but each also has a learning element to it. So learning is now the coin of the realm more than money. You have to create the learning culture for people. That's what they want. They don't necessarily want to move up really fast. They want new skills that they can put on their resume. So the people who figure out how to develop that learning culture are the people where people have the most longevity. Yeah.
I think the flip side of that is also just coaching. So providing some mechanism other than just, okay, here's the week-long onboarding where it's all about the product, and then just go ahead and hit the phones. Right? So, like the thing that you mentioned, this was it. It was the value of coaching was 17% greater quota achievement with 3+ hours coaching per month.
Absolutely.
I think the challenge of it, who here is actually like a manager of an SDR team? Like, just out of curiosity, how many hours do you actually dedicate in a month per rep for coaching?
Two to 3 hours.
Okay, that's good.
It's
Like
really,
6
really
to 8.
good.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's excellent. Are you using call recordings? Yeah.
I have in the past, not now.
Yeah. There's some awesome technology out there now. It is. Everyone should be looking at call recording. What a way to go. So it's not just record the call, listen to the whole call anymore. Now there's technology where you could set it up that certain words, say budget, time frame, decision, whatever the case may be, it gets tagged in the call. So you could listen to all of your reps' calls and say, let's just listen to what people are talking about budget, or let's listen to what they're talking about our competitors. I mean, call recording is insane now. It's awesome.
So John,
What's the technology or program that you can use to record or have that capability?
for call recording, what's the technology?
Well, is there a product that you can buy right now?
Yes. I don't.
Recommendation?
I'm going to give you a couple because I don't think it's. We try to be vendor agnostic,
Sure.
but a couple that fall into the category of which we were just talking about are Exec Vision, Conversature, and I believe InsightSales.com is close,
Not exactly, but yeah.
but they don't have the tagging capability yet. But they have a lot of other capabilities.
Refract TV. Refract.
Refract TV out of UK, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Well, actually, since we're talking about technology, that's kind of towards the end of the book, but we can talk about the tech stack. Right? And I think we all have CRM and then a whole bunch of bolt-ons. And sometimes I think the bolt-ons are really distracting. So what do you kind of consider the core things that should be must-haves for an SDR team?
Yeah, so it goes without saying CRM. And then the next two, I call them the double Ds, are data and dialers. It blows my mind that people will feed their SDRs crappy data. I mean, every day I say to someone, give up headcount, do you invest in your data? Give up anything, give up every other technology, invest in your data. There is nothing that will make your reps more productive than crisp, clean data. But it's not fun. No one wants to spend money there, so they ignore it, right? And then dialers. I mean, if your reps are even remotely touching the phone, like what is this, 80s? I mean, everybody should have dialers. Yeah.
And I think part of that is also the ability just to record stuff in your CRM. That's
Yeah,
where everyone's
okay.
actually storing everything. Yeah, question.
So you say dialers, are you just talking about the ability to just dial an IP call, or are you talking about predictive dialers that can connect streaming? What do you mean?
Okay, so the question, Glenn, I believe, dialers, are we talking about just automated, like just dial a whole bunch of stuff?
Click to call.
Click to call versus maybe predictive dialers and all that.
It really depends on your situation. So, I mean, click to call at the minimum. Predictive dialers where it's list load and you just go from call to call to call to call to call. Doesn't allow for pre-call planning. But if you're in a commodity play, you're selling to the same buyer all the time, you're going to say the exact same thing. I can go with predictive. I also like services, dialing services. Like I use InsightSales.com when I do my calling because I love local presence. Local presence is amazing. So if you're not using that, go get it. And then I also use Connect and Sell. So I can sit there for an hour and have 9 conversations, and they're just delivered to me. Screen pop,
That's more what I was asking, what was the name of that company?
connected cell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
There are tricks to using connected cell, which I'm happy to share, but it's pretty
Yeah.
powerful.
To share.
Well, I mean, it's all about the list load, right? So if you can't go from call to call, you can't go from one buyer type to another buyer type, one product to another product. I mean, you've got to, when you load your list into something like that, you need to load, I'm going to talk to VPs of sales about this topic. So when you get the pop and the screen thing, you're having a focused conversation, not jumping all over.
because you can't do that pre-call research
Right,
to any
it's just
great depth.
beep.
Um, but what do you think, on the flip side, what do you think are things that are like kind of toys or things that just probably are just distractions or we try to just get rid of? Actually, wow. What are some cool tools or whatever that folks are using today? Something that you think is really awesome that's helping you out? Anyone have kind of like a go-to? It could be on the data side, it could be on the tech side.
I work for a company called Zoom.info.
Zoom.info.
Is direct out there.
Direct
We
out.
actually integrated with Connect itself. I've got guys having 10 to 12 conversations now with direct.
That's really
Direct dials are like they're the magic pixie dust. Like what's better than a direct dial? Nothing.
I like to use just a dinky actually.
Tool around and
I like tool around,
system,
right?
yeah.
So I just have like all sorts of like different plugins. So one of my favorites is always just a Reportive.
Oh, I love Reportive. Is everybody using Reportive?
Like, you gotta use that. I think if you.
I use it free as a Chrome extension.
Yeah,
So this is what I love about it, right? So you get a download, fill out a web form. Yes, I make people still gate content, and they use their Gmail address, and you just hover over it, and it brings up their LinkedIn profile, and I'm like, capture. That's awesome.
Sidekick does that too, it's great.
Yeah,
Oh,
does.
sorry. Yeah.
I gotta get plug the
Two
plug the
freeze.
folks here.
Yeah, but if you have it on LinkedIn profile and you're not connected to it, you still don't have contact information, right?
Yeah, you do.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Has it right there. It just pulls it in.
Just pulls it in.
It's a great little plugin.
It would bring in their LinkedIn URL,
Picture, title, a whole ball of wax.
but not necessarily their phone number or their email address.
No, but you already have that because they filled out the web form.
Yeah.
But
This
they
this
filled
one
out
they
their
already come
personal
in.
email.
So they've already come to you and you covered over there, so and you've got a box on
Right.
the right hand side.
They came to me under disguise, and I found them.
You got it.
Yeah.
So-
Those are fun.
I'll talk a little about the cold calling, right? And
There
there's
is no
many-
such thing as cold
there's no
calling.
such thing as
It
cold
is the
calling.
cold that is dead, not the calling.
Thank you, because there's we get caught up. How many blog posts and things on LinkedIn have you seen? Like cold calling is dead.
Clickbait.
It's mad.
It's clickbait, that's all.
And everyone, invariably, like the conversation that gets initiated, someone that's doing their own type of methodology or social selling, this or that. But how do we actually get away from this cold calling to calling with relevancy? You have the 3 C's, you have like a few really interesting tidbits, just to kind of get away from a lot of the bad prospecting that folks are doing from an execution standpoint.
It's not that they're doing bad prospecting. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love inbound. HubSpot transformed my business. I will. Thank you, all right? I love inbound, but my favorite thing to do is outbound. Because with inbound, you get what you get. With outbound, you get what you want. So I love that targeted focus, I'm gonna get you, because you're never gonna respond to content. The secret sauce is to be interesting, to be relevant, and to be human. Like, we don't market to our database at the Bridge Group. It's just, Matt won't let us, because he's like, unless we have something very specific to share, we're not gonna blast our potential buyers with these inane messages. So, I think your outbound, you have to look at outbound, and we talk about it as you're telling a story. So you're gonna use voicemail, you're gonna use email, you're gonna use ghosting. Does everybody know what ghosting is? Right? Ghosting is when you call, you don't leave a voicemail, and you have local presence. So hopefully they pick up, they're like, oh, dry cleaner, doctor, daycare, whatever. So voicemail, email, ghosting, social media. You set up this cadence, for lack of a better term, I'm not pitching any vendors with that, but you're telling a story. You need to give your SDRs the chapters and the piece of the story they're delivering. So it's not that I'm going to say this to you and you're going to call me back. I'm going to say this and you're going to call me back. It's like you're planting a seed and painting a vision so that someplace in that cadence, hopefully something resonates and they respond.
It's, that sounds a whole lot better than just
Pounding the phones?
Pounding the phones, but also on the flip side, where you get the typical email and just following up. Or I like the touch base.
Okay. Oh. Or I like the ones I get where they send me an email, I ignore them because it was stupid. And then they send me an email asking me why I ignored the first email.
Right.
So it's twice as stupid. Like, really? That's a methodology?
What do you think?
I'm getting yelled at by SDRs I don't even know. Really?
I didn't read the book, but what are your thoughts around the quote-unquote breakup email?
It worked, and now it doesn't. Like, it
Maybe I
doesn't.
could explain that.
Yeah.
Some people aren't necessarily, they haven't been inundated with the breakup email.
It makes, you know, it's the funny response, you know, oh, I've tried to reach you, now I'm going to take you out of my database unless you respond, or sometimes they have little, what do they call those? GIFs? Like little hippopotamuses, like hippos, and like we're in kindergarten.
Little kittens.
Yeah, little kittens.
Little kitten will die if you don't respond to me.
Yeah, little puppies.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's one.
I know. Yeah, breakup, they worked and now they don't.
Yeah, please.
Question. What's your thoughts about inbound leads coming from your website? Do we respond in the first 15 minutes? Is that freaky, or should we wait? What's the wait time? I mean, there's a lot of
So the
questions.
question is, inbound, right? Because we do have to distinguish inbound versus outbound. You do a good job of doing that in your book, but there's all these statistics about responsiveness. Like you got to respond within an hour.
I know.
What are your thoughts on
No, you know what? I'm not going to answer. I'm going to ask you. When you download something, do you want to call within 5 minutes?
That's what I got.
What?
That's what I got.
Okay.
that? Yeah. So after you download it,
It's not a trial. It's not software. It's content. Okay. Because I agree with you on a trial. Because if you don't look them right away and tell them you're there to help and whatever, that's a whole different scenario. Your content. Like if somebody, I'm like, I haven't even opened it. You know nothing about me. And you're here. And then all the studies you see, when you dig into those studies, those are B2C.
interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
and when you start peeling back the onion, there's a lot of B2C data in there about that response time. Yeah.
What about open emails? So,
You talked about this one. This is an interesting one as well.
I know. So, every single person here probably has email tracking technology now. It's one of those things that if you're doing something with the data, it's awesome, and if you're not, it's stupid. Like I have email tracking software, and I see the guy opened it, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, what's that mean? Open means, by the way, you can just like roll past it. It doesn't even really mean that you click.
Right. It's a
Right.
false. It's a false signal.
But it's a two-sided question, I guess. There's open versus, yeah.
Click throughs. That's a whole different thing. I mean, I firmly believe in the technology, but if you're not doing something with it, then why do you have it?
I guess the question is it creepy if you do, say you sent the email a week ago, so they opened it, what's the appropriate wait time?
I say, no, if I sent someone content and they opened it, like click through opened it, and I happened to be sitting at my desk and I got that message, I would pick up the phone and I would call that person and I would go, I just big brothered you.
Right.
Absolutely. I don't care. I get to talk to them.
I mean, I do the same thing. If I know someone has opened it,
Uh-huh.
they've gone through I see like a whole lot of opens. That to me is a signal like, okay, they're either like reading it, maybe sharing with folks. I want to be able to engage quickly.
Yeah, just
So on the
John.
whole opening email introduction, would it be proper etiquette to notify them that they opened your email, or do you pretend like it's a coincidence?
I'd say no.
No.
Irrelevant.
Yeah. Everybody knows an email traffic is like hit the majority in the technology adoption space.
Is that creepy though? If somebody emails you and says, I saw that you opened my email and you know.
I mean, it's not a strategy I would employ.
Vendor on the spot, I don't know, that would just be,
Yeah.
that's, yeah, I don't know.
Can't you use clicky, go on and see how long they spent on your site? If they spend 10 seconds just going to your website and left, I'm really interested. If they spend 3 minutes and 45 seconds, you start to track the page that they've gone through. You've got a more full story, and you've got potential of a contact you want to be able to reach out to talk.
Yeah, that's more like a clear slide type situation than just a traditional, I think. Really not using my technology.
And you can use certain like website, triggers if you've actually set up certain landing page or you set it up as a campaign, and I think it makes sense. But it's just someone cruising a website, you have no idea, you have no context. So you want to be really careful because that can actually take you out of cycles.
But you can sometimes follow them back to where their address comes from, what state, what locality. And generally, if you're to B2B, you can probably figure out what your company
Yeah,
You could.
sounds like a lot of work.
Sure, please, Brian.
If you're using the right software, it actually will track the IP straight to the business. If it's B2B, you don't get a contact, but you get the business name. So depending on what you're selling, so like I sell software and services. So if somebody uses the software that we provide services for at that company, I see that they were perusing our website and what they were looking at. And I know somebody at that company that uses this software, just run a search on LinkedIn, see, yes, they obviously use the software. There's some type of a need, it's just a matter of fleshing out that need. But I know they're looking at a specific page about a service offering we have. There's obviously a problem at the company that they're looking for a solution.
Potentially, and there's plenty of package. I mean, HubSpot does that as well. You set up HubSpot, it can give you the triggers and give you the IP conversion, the company names, and all that. So that's definitely like an inbound trigger you can leverage.
So this is what kills me though. We'll spend all night talking about technology, right?
And we forget the core.
And then your SDRs will call me, and I'll be like, are you kidding me? They gave you that message, or they let you send that email? So I think it's like we need to get back to the basics and start investing in better process, better message, better education of our SDRs. They need to know about a day in the life of your buyer. It doesn't matter what you sell. It only matters that you help your customers build a better business. That's the language we need to teach them, not these cold emails or these
And how do we
tweet
get
responses.
Here's the challenge I've always posed to startups that they come to me and they say, we want to set up an SDR team. Then I'll hire a bunch of folks who are right out of school. They want to put them on phones, and they want to have them talk to a C-level executives. I'm like, but what are you going to talk to them about? I'm like, well, we'll introduce our product, our offering. Slow down. That's if you were a C-level, if you were a CEO of a company, is that the type of? Would you pick up that call? Would you respond to that email? And so, kind of pose the question to you, like, how do you get SDRs who have very little sales experience, very little business acumen, and they really haven't developed that experience yet? How do you get them up to speed to even be able to set appointments, or even more so, to set up qualified opportunities?
Well, I mean, we lay out a whole onboarding strategy in the book, but I mean, before you ever talk about your product or service, you have to talk about your customer. So if you're selling to CFOs, they, and this is their first or second job out of college, they don't know what a CFO does. So you gotta teach them, this is a day in their life, this is how they're measured, these are their challenges, this is how they're currently addressing those challenges, this is the language they use, here are the groups they hang out in, the books they read. Immerse them in your buyer, and then start to tell them the rest. And by the way, you have a CFO at your company, have them come in.
Imagine that.
Introduction
How
letters.
many people have CFOs in their companies?
Have customer CFOs talk to them. I mean, it's all about having the ability to relate. And if they can't relate, on.
Hey, Glenn.
Trish, first of all, I'm in violent agreement with everything I heard you say. You know, had that little detour to fix the microphone, but I want to ask you a question that's got two parts to it, and I don't want to take too
You know,
long.
I have a really bad cold. I don't know if I can pay attention twice, but okay.
I'll make it especially interesting. So a lot of what you're talking about is just how to do good prospecting. It has nothing to do with sales specialization per se, right? It's the kind of things that old war dogs like me were drilled into, like understanding your customer, having a reason to call that makes sense, really getting the context right. All of what you were talking about. And I wonder how sales specialization fits into that, because when I would do prospecting, as I got better as a rep, my selling experiences were so crucial in helping me have an effective prospecting conversation. And I've talked to a lot of buyers out there who dread calls from SDRs. Who they're like, I can't believe, like the things you're saying, I can't believe you left that message. You know, they're burning into companies, leaving these awful messages. They do get on the phone, you've got a person who's got very little sales training, who doesn't understand the business, doesn't have much business experience, hasn't even seen a whole deployment, right? Doesn't even. So I wonder, do you have any questions about sales specialization? Because I'm in agreement with everything you said. I just wonder if sales specialization introduces some unique problems that are hard to solve because of the nature of the way you recruit staff.
It is an interesting question. Does sales specialization make sense for every company?
It doesn't make sense for every company, but to your first point, I have received horrifically bad prospecting calls from field sales reps. So prospecting is an art and a science, right? So it's not like they've mastered that game. It doesn't make sense for every company. As a matter of fact, Spotify, right? Spotify moved away from sales specialization, from having SDRs, because their sales cycle is so short that it didn't make sense to do that handoff. So they just said, we're gonna have our sales reps do it from cradle to grave. You know, it's like a 30, 45-day sales cycle.
Is it Shopify or
Shopify.
Shopify, ZocDoc, there's like a
Yeah.
whole series of those sales that are more SB.
Yeah, quick sales
But they're
cycle.
transactional.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got great brand, you know. Once again, it's all about the variables. Nothing's a one-size-fits-all strategy. Everything's about the variables. So, yeah, you're right.
Can I ask just one quick follow-up question to that?
Mhm.
In a major account setting, would you see a team of an AE and a BDR being a good approach versus having separate teams?
Okay, ready? Here we go.
Alright.
First, it was inbound that was killing the cold call. Now it's account-based everything that's gonna kill inbound and outbound. So yeah, it's an emerging methodology that's been around forever, but now it has an official name: account-based marketing, account-based sales development, account-based everything, you name it. And it's actually fascinating. It requires a price point of around $50,000 at ASP to pull it off well, but it is an absolutely fascinating strategy about product marketing, sales development, you name it, coming together to go after targets.
Is that 50,000 ACV over 3 years, or are you talking about per year?
Then when I ask the experts, because the pundits that are out there pitching it, I'm like, what's the deal size gonna be to make that work? 50K is the number they give me. That's what I'm thinking.
For you.
Trish, can you explain it?
We got, okay, please. Ask Charles.
So you talk a lot about essentially top to bottom learning, where it's communicating the lessons you've learned institutionally as a company to your new hires and creating a culture. Like a lot of Boston startups, you're still figuring out what exactly the lessons. Like, how do you learn from the bottom up? Figure out like who you should be targeting and learning like when it's still an uncertain cycle.
That's a bummer, number one, because that's the most important thing you could do. But you know who I think does a great job talking about that? Aaron Ross wrote Predictable Revenue, and he has a new book out called From Impossible to Inevitable. He actually wrote it with Jason Lemkin, who is brilliant around SaaS. And they have a whole section on something called Nail Your Niche that totally lays out how CEOs and startup companies need to think about how they identify their target market. I highly recommend it.
I mean, and that's problematic because you go in with assumptions around sales messaging that cascades throughout your entire sales cycle. You may be saying the wrong things to the wrong people because you're not exactly sure at the very beginning what it is that you should be saying. You don't even really have a target. You don't really have nailed the niche, to Aaron Ross's point, but also just an understanding of how your solution poses to solve a particular challenge. And what you generally find out, particularly early stage, or if you're launching a new group within a bigger company, you're going after like a new segment. Like everything you've done in the past, you may have to go back to the drawing board and re-examine. So you almost go through a customer discovery or rediscovery standpoint to figure out what should that messaging be, what should that market really be. Let us get a lot smarter around that and actually have conversations with prospects about what are you looking for, as opposed to sitting there and trying to develop an engine to sell to them, because you can't, you don't even know exactly what you're selling.
If you want to go old school, Jeffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm, like fantastic book. Same concept. Like how do you establish your beachhead and where do you go from there? But sort of the updated version of that is Aaron's book. Really good.
There's a few other hands like in the back.
Can you just explain the account-based thing? I don't know.
Account-based.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Oh.
Might be my next.
But when that, see, it started out as ABM, so I'm going to
Yeah.
give you the
Yeah.
acronym,
It's
the acronym soup here. Then it was ABSD,
Yep.
ABS, and
Yep.
now it's ABX for everything.
Right.
So what exactly is it?
Mark, it started as top 40. Some people here will recognize it as top 40.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Target
exactly.
accounts,
Targeted
strategic
account.
accounts, selling. It's
Miller High.
yep. It's not new, but it's getting branded just like sales development did. So it's when a company takes a set of accounts and says, for these accounts, we're going to create a sales process that encompasses multiple functional areas: marketing, product marketing, maybe executives, field sales, inside sales, SDRs, whatever the team looks like. And that we're going after all of our buyer types at that account using content, using events, using gifts, using phone, using email, using whatever, to get in there and find out, is there a possibility for us to do business with that account?
Hopefully that's clear, and I think part of the flip side of that is that marketing before supposedly was kind of just broad-based,
Right.
and now they're
Super focused.
trying to focus it on a particular set of accounts.
Yeah, actually, I was just wanted to ask a follow-up question about that. I mean, let's say you have markets like 1,000 customers. They're each spending $1 million, and you want to, with your competitors, and you want 100K of that. So how would you start structuring, kind of going after them, kind of asking, well, here, spend 1,000, spend 10,000, spend 5 of this, just try us out, or how would you target that?
If I could answer a question like that with knowing nothing, I would be so rich. But I'm happy to talk to you about it and learn more details. It'd be my pleasure.
Please.
Trish, we've had a few responses recently where we've gotten the person on the phone, we've got a meeting set up, talked to them a little bit about what we do, and then we get, we ask for a meeting, and they say, oh, you know what, we get so many vendors talking to us, can you send me some information first? And it feels like a dead end.
You mind sharing what company you're with?
Yeah, so I work for MicroStrategy, we're an analytics company.
All right, well, you know my style because I know you read the book, so super direct. So I would say, can I ask you a question? Like, actually, can I ask you 2 questions? One, are you asking me for information as a blow-off? It's okay to say, it's okay to say, yes, I am, by the way. You gotta give them permission to be that direct back. And 2, if they say, no, I'm absolutely not, just say, well, what's going to happen with that information? Who are you gonna share it with, and whatever. I'm huge on asking direct questions. People are, we've gone away from it. We're so PC. Like if someone says, no, you're not that interesting to me. No, first thing out of your mouth should be, what about my message didn't resonate with you? Especially for startups that are trying to figure out their niche. What about my message did not resonate with you?
And then you have, don't feel you don't have permission to ask those questions. People appreciate the directness. Even if you think it may cause discomfort, there's actually a really great blog post from the HubSpot blog, I think it was maybe just a day or 2 ago, that talked about questioning.
Yeah.
and a way of actually getting beyond some of the discomfort. And- Yeah, it was a blog post. What I'll do is I'll share it in like the recap email, but it was like a really good post. Peter, maybe.
Yeah, it was called After You Ask This Question, You Can Ask Anything. Actually, I wrote it.
I'll give you a plug.
But actually, the inspiration came from Carol, who runs a sales coaching business. She taught one of her clients about how to use it, and they used it, and it helped them. I don't know if they made a deal, but they got way past the first phase.
Yeah. So what I'll do as a benefit to everyone here is I send out an email, and I'll actually include a link to the blog post. And Carol, please.
Well, actually, I had a question. It was about coaching. So you were with me actually last week, Trish, when we were in Freesfield session 7.0, and he had said there's so much talk about sales managers needing to coach more. It's hugely a part of what he's happening to really say in the book. But what really surprised me was he said that I really don't think sales managers should be coaching. One, they don't have the skills, they don't have the time, and there seems to be like this conflict of interest where sales reps are always feeling like they're being evaluated versus being coached for skills.
You know yourself as coach of service, right?
Well, I wanted to get your take on what he said, because it was, I hadn't heard that before. I've always heard that sales managers should be coaching, not that they shouldn't.
Well, I mean, I will say an emerging trend is people are hiring full-time coaches. Not everyone has that luxury, but people are hiring experts to come in and do nothing but coach, or bringing in third parties to do the coaching for them. But you guys, you do 3 to 8 hours a week.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
It's a lot, but if you don't coach them, they're gonna do what?
You don't need to point at me.
That's okay, I wasn't even looking. I was listening, right? You tell we do inside sales, we use our ears a lot. Listen. So, just like you said, if you don't call with a plan, if you don't set them up to call with a plan, they're gonna be useless. So you have to spend the time and break it out into each one of these concepts. Maybe lay out all the different concepts and start drilling into each of them. Repeat it, repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Work with them, role playing. Let them run the role play session. All that kind of stuff. So that's how you get to the 6-8. It's not me running my mouth all day for 6-8 hours times everybody, right? Some is group and some is individual. That's a key. You've got to go. What? No, it's not going to change. But makes sense. It's got to be individual as well as group too, so they can open up in a place they feel comfy. Instead of
Were you taught how to be a good coach?
yeah.
See, I think that's the critical success factor. You can't just assume you made someone a manager and now they're a great coach. It's a skill. They need to be taught how to coach.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Please.
So in your book, you also talk about some of the things that you look for, the qualities that you look for in an ideal candidate, like being curious, being passionate. So what about being coachable? What might be some of the interview questions that you would ask to see if a candidate is coachable?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, in terms of looking at candidates that you bring in, there's a few traits that you mentioned in the book, curiosity, and so on. What about coachability? What maybe other traits that are actually important as you start to look at and evaluate as you go?
Well, I know you're especially interested in the coachability part, and I will tell you that I can't answer that because I'm the worst interviewer on the face of the planet. I will decide within 5 minutes if I like you or not. I'm the worst.
I'll take it right.
Go.
Somebody knows how to listen. And I believe, having spent a lot of years coaching and revisiting a therapist, somebody who listens, that empathy is not coach.
It's a good point. So, folks on the video, you won't be able to hear that, but the idea is, as Sue was mentioning, that if someone can listen, if they have a really good ear to listen and they have the patience to listen, that's actually that's a skill. Having the patience to actually listen to someone without kind of thinking about your plan, without trying to plan ahead. You actually got to listen. You got to take that in, because what happens is you have a traffic jam that happens in your mind because you're trying to listen, but you're also trying to think about your response. Don't do that. It's a concept I call active listening. Just listen, take it in. And if you need to pause, pause. Pauses are really powerful in having conversations, and they can work in person as well as over the phone. Suzanne?
Ask candidates, what was the last change you made to your sales presentation in response to feedback from coach or sales manager?
That's a good question.
That's great.
Yeah, that is a great question. We do need some for newbies about coachability. Once again, I don't have them because I'm terrible. Maybe you do.
I was wondering if you had suggestions on resources where I can go to learn to be a better coach, because I'm good at doing, not good at coaching, and now that's part of my
Yeah, most of us are
Yeah.
not very good coaches, because it's, again, it's a skill that's
Right.
learned. So any good resources about learning to be a coach?
You mean books or people or anybody in this room teach coaches?
I'm a coach.
There you go, you got a coach back there.
Coach over here.
You over here.
Sales coach for
Carol,
startups, by the way. So I coach entrepreneurs.
Glenn.
I teach them how to sell.
There are people that specialize.
Keith Rosen.
Empathy is supposed to be.
What's that, Peter?
Keith Rosen's book is really good. It's how to turn salespeople into sales champions. It's really good.
It's excellent.
Keith Rosen's book, How to Turn Salespeople into Sales Champions, is a resource.
I'll have to ask you about that later, get the clip. But, well, do one last question, because just out of respect for Trish and being well, but spreading it. So, one last question.
This will be a question. I'll make a comment. In that playing field over there, it's 8-0 Red Sox in the bottom third. Sorry.
Well, if you're a Red Sox fan, you're more happy to cheer or I won't be cheering.
On the notion of coaching, especially if people that are in their first or second job, if they've played any sport, they are coachable. If they've never played a sport, they've never been part of a team, even a debating team, you've got a problem.
I gotta be honest with you, never played a sport, I'm the most coachable person on the face of the planet, never played a team
Were
sport.
you when you were 21?
Let me think, probably.
What I will say,
The whole athlete thing just crazy.
Doesn't, oh, Trish, debating team, anything that was part of a team.
Yeah.
But if they've never done anything that was part of a team, they're probably not.
so it is a relevant debate in terms of whether athletes, and I talked about this before, and I've blogged about it, but athletes and sales, but I think there is certain things that are analogous in terms of discipline, goal setting, and those things are great. But
A lot of women have not been on teams
but
and are
we'll
very,
see.
very good at sales.
But beyond that,
Better than men.
yeah, well, that is a statistic. What I would say is that you should show, what I look for in candidates, what I look for is, I just look for initiative. Have you done something above and beyond what has been expected of you? And to try and suss that or find those pockets of things where people may have gone a bit beyond what's expected, because then you can expect that there's goal expectation, setting, bias towards achievement and action. So, but again, whether you're an athlete or not, I've worked with great salespeople who have been not athletes. I've worked with salespeople who have been really good athletes, top, elite athletes. Really haven't been great at sales.
Asking about adversity is another good one. You ask
Adversity. We can actually have a whole session. In fact, one of the sessions that we're going to do in July is all about hiring. So this is like
diversity.
For anyone, but we'll include diversity as well. But to talk about hiring, because it's such a huge topic and such a huge pain point that I want to have a special breakout just for hiring. And then to them, we'll be leading that, right? Yeah. We had a plan, and we set it in stone yet, but in any case, I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. Who knows whether everyone's going to be filtering out of the stadium soon and jamming up traffic, but we do have like a little bit of a time window here, so we can plan our escape. but I do want to give a round of, I do want to ask one last question. I always ask every person who speaks.
No, I don't have my gun with me.
You don't have to go. That's good because it's crossing state line. Any sort of book or anything like movie, just something that's been inspirational of late that you might want to share? And obviously your book is very inspirational to me.
No, I just thought of a book, but I'm not going to mention it. It wasn't inspirational. I just went. I thought it was eye-opening. So, I'm going to do a Keenan. Watch. I don't know. I like Karen's book.
No, let's do this for Keenan. So,
Keenan's book
so
is great, not
I'm
taught. It's great, not taught by
not
Keenan.
going to do a clip right now, right? So I'm going to see how. So,
Am I doing Keenan? Am I doing
you're going to enact the thing that he shared with you. So I want to ask you about Keenan's book, Not Taught. Maybe you just share a little bit about like what you think about it. Do you think it's really helpful for folks? That's great.
That's an inside joke.
Hey, Keenan. Yeah, terrible inside baseball, but no worries. I mean, your book, the book you have in your hands, is good enough inspiration and just really good tips. So thank you for writing the book. Thank you for being here.